Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Raposo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Education Marketing Leader. Today I have a guest joining me from Beacon Technologies. His name is Jordan Burleson, and he's the VP of Digital Advertising at Beacon. Jordan, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Very good. Yeah, I met Jordan a couple of years ago at AMA in Washington, D.C., and made acquaintances this way. We're also Hannon Hill and Beacon Technologies work closely together as partners. So he's an expert on digital advertising, and I have an interest in it. That's why I wanted to bring him on the show, and I know we're going to have a good one. But before we start the episode and get to the meat of things, let's talk about Jordan's background a little bit. Jordan, tell us a little bit about your role at Beacon Technologies and how you approach digital advertisement for your higher ed clients.
Absolutely. So my background really before Beacon, I tell people, a lot of my employees and some of my team who are new to paid ads and digital advertising, like, it doesn't really matter how much you know when you start. When I started at Beacon, I had zero paid advertising experience. I learned it completely here, completely on clients as a training ground. My background was, I had an advertising and a broadcasting background at Appalachian State, where I went to school. Right when I finished school, there weren't a lot of jobs out there, and ended up selling ads in Yellow Pages. So it is pretty interesting that I've got this background in traditional advertising, where I had to learn the world of billboards and Yellow Pages and print media and direct mail and email marketing, and then kind of dovetailed that into SEO and paid search and analytics. So when I started at Beacon, I had a little bit of SEO experience, a little bit of analytics experience, building some websites. And when I started at Beacon, I fell in love with paid advertising. And here I am 11 years later, and have worked my way up from specialist 1, specialist 2, strategist, director, and now VP. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that you say that it doesn't matter how much one knows when they first get started, because I recently took the search ads, a Google search ads certification course. And man, that was, in comparison to the Google Analytics course, that was a brunt of work. I was like, holy cow, I'm not going to remember any of this. So you have to apply it, that's how you learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for people scared of digital advertising and are not really aware of it, you're kind of doing this within higher ed or an agency or whatever, I tell people I really hire personalities, people that can talk to people and consult with people first, and I can train you on the paid advertising later. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. So you have you worked at 11 years with Beacon. Now you have an extensive background working with higher ed institutions, but as you mentioned, you also come from a background of traditional advertising, and it may not have been in higher ed. So with your extensive experience in digital marketing, what are some of the unique challenges higher ed institutions face when it comes to digital advertising compared to some of the other industries out there?
Yeah, I would say right now we have several clients in higher education, and I've talked with plenty more, like at conferences where you and I met, Chris. And I think the biggest thing is now that the teams kind of up to the challenge to market to students and parents and that whole thing, they're just running really small. It's a thin group. Sometimes I'll talk to people, it's a marketing team of one, and they may have someone that's a developer, someone that can help them, but one of the things that I think they struggle with is personalization. So that can happen on the website, it can happen in advertising, but kind of meeting students where they're at right now. You go to a site, and no matter if you're looking for a graduate program or a certificate or undergrad and just shopping schools right out of high school, you're kind of met with the same messaging. It's like there's not really a way to self-identify. to get down to a specific part of the site that really answers the questions that you have. So that's one. Another one I would say is just the ever-changing student population that colleges and universities have. Now more than ever, people are aware of cost. You've got people like me who fall in a millennial category who are adept at using traditional media and digital media to find things that we need. But right now you have to reach some people purely through traditional advertising means. Some of them you're kind of following them along the path where you're touching them from digital, but also doing traditional. And then you have this new Gen Z, Gen Alpha group where marketing to them is radically different. They don't like to be convinced or sold on anything, and they need to feel that it's an organic process for them to fall in love with the university and want to go there. So that's a huge challenge that I think a lot of students have. And then lastly, it's just a cost thing. When I run paid advertising for higher education, it's kind of putting some of that front and center. We have experience at Beacon doing stuff with retail and e-commerce sites too, which is actually pretty helpful to segue that with some experience into higher education, because we have to put things like credit card applications and financing and how can I afford this messaging into our advertising, and work with the teams who run these websites to put it on the website too. But higher ed really has to, come to bat with this. There's some states where they're getting some kickbacks from the state itself, and they can get community college paid for and whatever. So these schools that don't have that benefit have trouble competing in that space. So letting people know we have financial aid right off the bat, that there's these different programs and scholarships available, are really important to help compete on cost, and also just giving people tons of options. Do you want to learn from a hybrid model? Do you want to be in class? Do you want to do it purely online or do it remotely? All these have different costs, and letting them know their options like as early as possible helps their marketing hit a little different.
Yeah, you just mentioned cost. Let's talk about the money problem a little bit with some of the smaller schools and their limited budget. When they decide to dip their toes into advertising, what is a realistic number that they should be willing to spend in order to gain some traction just on the ads alone, not even partnering with a company like Beacon and spending that money?
It really depends. If it's a university that's supporting all their programs, I mean, you should not bat an eye at spending $15,000 a month in paid advertising. If you're supporting a program, let's say it's one school within a university or one program, I will tell people don't really come with less than $2,000 or $2,500. And that's purely in the paid spend, not for an agency to management or for paying a team internally to manage it. But that's what you really need to have to compete. And in some cases, it's a little more than you need. But it does give you the option to say, let's start with paid search, maybe something with Google Ads, and then branch out and test things on meta advertising, get your ads out there on Facebook and Instagram, dabble in LinkedIn a little bit, dabble in TikTok, dabble in all the things that are kind of working for your university. But it gets you a really good start at that cost point.
Yeah, you just mentioned Google search, TikTok, LinkedIn. How do you determine the right mix for the most effective paid ad efforts for a higher ed institution? Are there some that work better than others?
Absolutely. I mean, the crazy part is I consider myself pretty conservative in my approach. Like, I think when people meet me and I'm asking for money and asking to do things, it doesn't seem that way, but I really am, because one of the things, it's kind of like putting money in like the S&P 500. It's like a sure bet to, make money on your money. Google ads, paid search, text ads are that sure bet. That is one. It doesn't matter if you're a community college, you're supporting one program at a university, or you're supporting like all of undergrad and graduate for a university. We've done all those things. Google ads, paid search works the best. That's the one that you should be doing in some way, shape, or form. The nice part when you're in Google ads is you can layer in text ads that hit people right when they're ready to take action. So like, I'm looking for an undergraduate school within 50 miles of this place that I live. Text ads are there They're putting your school out there in front of people when they're ready to make that decision. But Google Ads also has fun things like remarketing. Like a person's been to the site before and you want to bring them back. They came to the site, they spent a lot of time there, but didn't apply or didn't fill out a form to request information. Remarketing is a great way to hit them over the head. One of the things I think a lot of universities do when I kind of do an audit on their advertising, they invest a lot in display. And display is great for brand awareness, but it's not great for getting people to take action. So you'll see, hey, we have a ton of traffic and a ton of impressions, and we're really getting our name out there, but it's not working. And it's because if you're just doing display, but not paid search and not remarketing and not things on social, you're not closing the gap. You're kind of like letting them know that you're out there and you're bringing them to the site, but you're doing nothing to get them back later on. You always have to be with the next channel, bringing them back to the site and showing them something new. That's the biggest thing when it comes to digital marketing. So I would say Google Ads 1000% is the best and works for any type of school, any type of department. This could be for like admissions, transfer admissions. If you're trying to help your development team fundraise, it can help through all those. Now, if you're trying to go after, some new programs at a school that target a younger demographic or whatever, absolutely testing things on Meta, advertising with YouTube, or kind of putting some of those pre-roll ads that show on YouTube or YouTube Shorts or TikTok can be a great way to kind of layer it in there and complete the whole marketing mix. But don't expect it to like meet all your admissions goals by just doing that fun social advertising. You have to do a little bit of everything. And Beacon's gotten pretty good at finding what that mix is. But it's a learning experience. Those campaigns don't start out performing great day one. It's all about kind of looking at the data and seeing what works and then adjusting the budget mix and the channel mix over time.
Yeah, you made a good point there to set the expectations. What is a good time frame then if you're putting money in there for the first time and you're like, oh, as the marketer, you're going to show the ROI to your leadership and you feel like, hey, I got to show something really quickly. And if they don't see something within the first week, they may jump off again. What do you think is a time frame there to see some results?
Well, I think a week is unrealistic for almost anything. If you're trying to shed some body fat and get fit, a week is also kind of unrealistic to set that expectation. But the nice thing that's different with paid search as opposed to like traditional search engine optimization. Search engine optimization, that time period to say like, is it working, could be 3 months, which is a killer for paid search. Like we can't live in that amount of time to wait. For paid search, why I love it, and I came into Beacon not knowing as much about it, but kind of fell in love with it, is because it's the shot in the arm. It's something that people see everywhere. They understand it. They understand maybe not how it works and how it finds you wherever you go, but they understand why it's really effective. And with paid, you can see really good results in like 14 days. 14 days is seeing really good results. You're maybe not going to hit your goals. It may not knock everyone out of the park, but it's enough data to let you know, now we have enough data to make some adjustments, to change the budget, to ramp it up to within 30 days. You're really hitting your stride, and the people, the stakeholders at a university are happy with what you're doing and are ready for the next step and the next phase of the marketing plan.
Yeah, that's really good insights. I have to say I'm really into SEO lately. So I've been doing a lot of SEO work for our website, and I always test and see, do we show up? Do we rank higher? And one of our long tail keywords is higher education content management system. And because I emailed you yesterday, one of Beacon's ads showed up for Cascade CMS. So in the search terms, right on top above the organic search results right there. So if somebody in higher ed on the B2B side, I'm talking, is looking for a content management system that serves university and colleges, if we put my search ad in there, Hannon Hill will most likely going to show up right then and there when the person's ready to make the purchase.
That's correct. Yeah. And all those people you're competing against, like, you have this unfair advantage, where all of a sudden, one, you've got that name brand, that branded awareness that we call it. I mean, for paid, I think that's kind of a misnomer that people don't understand, is there's a whole branded strategy and a non-branded strategy. But Cascade's going to benefit 100% of the time if you're advertising in that space too, because more than likely you should be number one from an SEO perspective, but being able to be number one or in the mix from a paid perspective, you're really monopolizing the search results page. So, and that's what I love doing. I love being 1, 2, and 4 on the first page of Google. And then also you leave and you start doing something else and this ad's just chasing you around the internet. That's really exciting. And it's kind of, just consider it a wave from Jordan Burleson as he's chasing you around the internet to get you to do something.
Exactly. And then, but here's the other thing, and we talked about this in a collaborative webinar last year on GA4, and you mentioned something during that webinar that stuck with me, that landing pages are very important, and you have to have calls to actions on those landing pages to help the visitor take the next step, right? And sometimes you've seen higher ed institutions that had landing pages without a proper call to action.
1,000%. This is one of the biggest pitfalls of higher education. And think about it, like, it's understandable why it happens. There's thousands of pages for them to manage and keep up with and fine tune. And when the team's small, they just can't do it. But a lot of cases, they're like, it's not working for us. We do have a page that ranks pretty well, and it's 2 paragraphs of text, no images, no buttons, nothing. And I'm like, well, that's really great. But if you are assuming that a person is savvy enough or interested enough to navigate through your menu and your footer to find ways to contact you at that point, you're losing students left and right. So landing pages are super important. I know we've talked about this on that same webinar too, that one of the biggest things that higher education or university or college has to think about is landing pages. And one of the things I hate, I think I've been like known here at Beacon as a big hater of this, is siloed landing pages. So I think what higher education does is they're like, to avoid this, what we'll do is we'll create this really pretty visual landing page that you can only get to from advertising. You can only get to from an email marketing campaign. And it has all the bells and whistles. There's a lot of explainers on there. There's forms that you can fill out. And there's a lot of like little calls to action. But if you've gotten me to click it and I'm not ready to do any of those things, you've lost me. You've also not created an easy menu or navigatable way for me to get back to the site and say, like, who is this university? What do they offer? Why should I go here? What's the student mix? What's the campus life like? A landing page can't convey all those things. So I don't like siloed landing pages. And just because you see good results and people are filling out a lot of those forms doesn't mean they're actually good candidates. It just means there was nothing else for them to do there. So I tell people, why not take the whole siloed marketing landing page approach and apply it to your actual website? Make your actual website landing pages more appealing, more visual, have clear CTAs, calls to action, buttons, or forms that they can fill out, where if they're not ready for it, they can also navigate around and learn more and then decide if they want to come back and do that later.
We talked about some of the pitfalls. Let's talk about some of the success stories with digital advertisement that you've seen during your years working with higher ed institutions. Do you have some examples you want to share?
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do with higher education is actually consult with them. I mentioned earlier why I hire people who are good at talking and consulting, because there's power in that. And also, if you provide really good advertising, but you're giving them advice on stuff that maybe they don't think you have business advising them on, that is a customer or a client that you'll have for a long time. So one of my favorite stories is this has happened with 2 different universities where before we ever turned on paid advertising, I actually gave them some advice to say, there's no CTAs here. Everywhere on the site, you're asking people to apply now. Is everyone that lands on this page ready to apply now? Or are they just looking up the course schedule? Or are they just here seeing what dates are the admission deadlines? Or are they seeing how much it costs? So I gave them advice on adding some different CTAs and actually incorporating a different one in there called request information. So we added this request information button. It was in the top navigation of the site, also on a lot of key landing pages we were going to turn paid ads to. And they emailed me a week later after they made some of these changes, and they said, the ads you're running are working great. And I said, we haven't turned them on yet. So it was really nice to see that, like, we gave this advice. We let them know what really works and what students want from some of those landing pages. And then when we turned on paid ads, it was like a fire hydrant of qualified students came to the site and were really engaged, and it was really successful. So that's one of my favorite stories. I tell it all the time, and I just love kind of what it did. And to say that paid advertising isn't just about the ad copy and the keywords and the budget that you send traffic to. It's like knowing enough from the experience of running those campaigns to see that the landing page is just as important. The keywords on that landing page, if there's a lot of them on there that are in my keywords and Google ads, it's cheaper. The cost per click goes down. The quality score goes up. The conversion rate goes up by having a better landing page experience. Also, by having request now and apply now, that gives me 2 different conversions I can pump into Google ads to then have their machine learning and attribution modeling go after more qualified students. It gives me more opportunities to show success. So that was a really exciting one that I love to do. And another one, I think a lot of higher education, what they'll do is say, we have this budget, and they'll just use that budget every single month. But we got into working with Wake Forest University here in North Carolina, and they had a very specific ask, which is, we want to do paid campaigns for our transfer admissions. And they had kind of really high goals of how many transfers that they wanted. So we let them know, like, you have transfer deadlines for all different things throughout the year. Why are you spending the same amount of money every single month? You should be dropping it down to next to nothing in these months really far away from these deadlines. And you should be spending more. If your deadline is in May, in March and April, you should be ramping up your spend. And in May, you should have a really high budget too, and then drop it back down. So that was one of those changes where all of a sudden, when we first started the engagement with them, it was kind of working. They were seeing some results, but it wasn't this like waterfall effect of qualified leads and traffic coming to their site. But that tiered budgeting worked wonders. And the nice part was, not only did we ramp up the budget, we ran a lot of text ads during those times, but we're also able to re-engage with remarketing or retargeting them ads to bring them back, to say, hey, they were on here looking at transfer admissions. Now the deadline's approaching, let's bring them back through remarketing. And remarketing's cheaper, so we brought them back at a fraction of the cost.
That's amazing. That builds so much trust. If you're, as an institution, go to someone and you have a allocated amount of money, and that company says, hey, I don't want that money, let's make sure you spend it wisely and be good stewards of it. That alone, that kind of advice, that goes a long way. And then what you said about the apply now versus request for information button, where you advise them to make that change there, that first came up where we had again with Beacon and Hannon Hill during our 2023 Cascade User Conference. We had a roundtable discussion on higher ed web trends, and the moderator, Troy Singer, he refers to it, when somebody asks the apply now or buy now from the start, it's equivalent to dating someone and asking them to marry you on the first date. It's just too big of an ask, So taking a step back and putting away that pressure for a moment or two, that really helps to move the prospect forward. But again, spending money, you got to report back on it. Data analytics comes into play here. What are some of the crucial assets you want to assess to report back on the ROI of a particular ad campaign?
Yeah. I mean, the nice part with paid advertising is it's not too dissimilar from what universities are reporting on already. I mean, we still get the same type of data. Sessions or overall traffic, looking at Google Analytics metrics, is the most important. That's what people look for. Are there more eyeballs on our site than they were before you did paid advertising? But I think a lot of times the better question is like, what metrics aren't good to report on? You know what I mean? I think a lot of our higher education clients, they're intellectuals, they're into research, they like the data. So sometimes the more you give them, the better. There are some pitfalls when it comes to data and like getting hung up on certain things. It's good not necessarily to focus on what I mentioned before with these silo landing pages, like form submissions, to get hung up on like how many people filled out a form or how many people applied now. If your marketing is sending people where that's the only option they have, you're probably going to have a lot of submissions that don't turn to actually enrolled students. They don't turn into the next step. You're not going to convert them after the fact. So sometimes even looking at things like contact forms or conversions isn't necessary until you understand, are you tracking the right conversions? Are you tracking it in the right way? Are you sending traffic to pages where they can organically do any of these things and they choose to do that thing and they choose to fill out that form? Also things like session duration or pages per session. I think a lot of universities get held up on like, how much are they reading? How much time are they spending here? When sometimes a session duration of 4 minutes, they're like, oh, look at all that time. I'm like, you're telling me it took them 4 minutes to do something interesting or to convert on your site? That's not good, maybe. You know what I mean? So it is a little subjective, and it may mean that, you know, if your session duration or your pages per session or these metrics we track have dropped, it just means through changes on your site, you got them to convert faster. So those are things not to get hung up on, but the big ones are really, once you're tracking the right conversions or the right leads or form submissions or email contacts or whatever you're tracking on the site, financial aid clicks or starts for that application, those conversions, the conversion rates for those conversions and the cost per conversion really are the biggest ones that we're after. The nice part with paid is we have a whole host of metrics that Google Ads has that Google Analytics doesn't, that we can also track, things like click-through rate, which are really, really helpful to say, is your ad copy really meshing well with what your students are looking for? So click-through rate's a great one that we'll use. CPC to track, is it getting cheaper to buy up this traffic over time? But a lot of them kind of are the same between both platforms. And we love to use them because if they're engaging our firm or somebody else with SEO or with email marketing, we're all playing in the same space and reporting out on the same metrics, which makes it easy for stakeholders to understand what they're looking at.
Absolutely. And you want to make sure that the messaging resonates with the prospect, whether they are student, alumni, or donors or faculty. Talking about the way things resonate with people, obviously things have changed over the last 11 years that you worked in the landscape of higher ed marketing as well as digital advertising. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen? You know, everybody's talking about AI right now.
Yeah. When it comes to AI, like Beacon, you'll see kind of a couple different lines of thinking where when it comes to our content marketing team, for example, they're really not for it at all. A lot of universities kind of feel the same way. They're like, hey, we would need to create a policy around this and really kind of police what happens with AI. I love the capabilities and the different options AI brings. I'm not going to have it automate or do anything for me fully, if that makes sense. So I think when it comes to higher education, it is wonderful to use artificial intelligence to help crawl your website and find out what content don't we have that others do. What is some messaging that's really compelling that we're not putting on the site? It's great to help start developing a program page or a blog post or something on your site to get you creative ideas and maybe some keywords to focus on. But that's where it stops. That's where a skilled content writer, someone at the team who's familiar with the university and the programs and your mission statement, they take over with that starting point and finish it out. That's how I look at AI. For paid ads, same thing. It's really helpful. We have in all the ads that we do now, it's this responsive search ad format for all of paid search. It's 15 headlines and 4 descriptions for every single ad across every single type of keyword and program that the university offers. That's a lot of work. So AI can really help us generate headlines that we haven't thought of before. It can give us a starting point or maybe some unique ways to incorporate keywords into those headlines, but we're still writing them ourselves. It's also really good to be, you can use AI to crawl pages and find out what keywords are ranking on this page, or, you know, what's a keyword that's not on here that's on this other page, to look at another university to see what they're doing better. But like I said, it's like idea generation. It's a way to find out like what you're missing, but then Beacon's big about the manual touch. We use machine learning, we use automated bidding models, but there's still a manual person controlling the budget, throttling things, changing keywords, adding negatives. We never let the machine take over everything for us, and there's still that manual touch. So that's a big thing that I think not only applies to Beacon, but for higher education too, as they're encountering all the options that AI brings. It's just using it, but using it wisely.
Very good. Very, very interesting. What stood out to me that you're using AI to crawl the website to figure out what pages you don't have that other competitors have. What tool do you use for that?
Well, we've used, the nice part is with Beacon, we have access to some paid tools. SEO Clarity is a paid tool that Beacon uses for all of our clients. We also use SEMrush. It's a paid version of a tool where we can crawl sites and find that data as well. But if you also have used ChatGPT or Bard, which is, on the Google side, you're going to get access to some of that stuff too. And it's all about the prompts. If you haven't used AI, you can put almost anything in there, and what you get out, it kind of is based on how much data you put into it. So if you're going to use ChatGPT or Bard or some of these things, you can also Google a lot of common prompts people use, like what are some ChatGPT prompts that are good for paid ad marketing or whatever. That I tell people all the time, to be a good paid advertising person, you just need to know how to search for stuff better than other people do, and you can kind of find out how lay people search and how educated people search, and everywhere in between. But yeah, those paid tools that I mentioned, plus the actual AI services themselves, if you're putting a really long question inputted into that service, you're going to get the answer you want out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. SEMrush, I'm using that right now. I've got a couple of certifications through SEMrush or SEMrush, whatever you call it, and really got deep into the tool. We got the paid tool as well, and it's amazing, helping you figure out what sort of long tail keywords that your competitors rank for that you don't rank for, that you should implement into your copy there. It's a game changer for me, and I highly recommend it as well to anybody out there who's trying to play the long game with the SEO. And but this is not about SEO, it's about digital advertising. Looking ahead, what are some of the trends and innovations in digital advertising that you see or that you think higher ed marketers should be aware of to prepare for the coming years?
One of the biggest things, what's interesting with this same conference where we met, which was AMA, I was able to sit at some tables with people, some marketing teams at universities. And the number one thing they talked about, and they had the same questions that you pose, like what are those innovations, but they brought them up, like what they were doing to me that I hadn't thought about, that is great marketing. And a lot of it revolves around user-generated content. So a lot of universities and colleges, like some of this doesn't even curtail into paid advertising, but just like what they can do with user-generated content, having students who have an internship at a university who their goal is to post on social media, like how a student wants to see social media and consume social media. Maybe they're making TikToks on campus to talk about student life. Maybe they're in a classroom showing something unique that's happening in there. Maybe it's on campus showing how beautiful everything is around there with the buildings and the quad and whatever. But they were using students to do this who had a little bit of a social media certification heading out of school, and the university benefited by these students putting out content that students who would go there would want to consume. Some of the students at campuses, you see a ton of student athletes now who are influencers in their own right, who have a decent following. Tapping into that with the universities is really important. I would say also, not even related to paid search, just polling students. How do you consume marketing? How do you consume entertainment online? And finding out, maybe testing out different messages, different email headlines and campaigns and paid advertising ads, like what resonates, what doesn't, what is too pushy, what's assuming too much about where I'm at in my decision-making process. And doing some of those, student surveys with the students you have on campus already is a great way to do it. And then to take all that information, I think the trends are kind of, people are already aware of, but short form video, as you're kind of using in this platform for this podcast as well, but turning that into content you can repurpose on LinkedIn or YouTube Shorts or Reels, or TikTok are really important. So having videos that show students in their element, the college in its element, are really important. And then just also utilizing social media. I think no matter what age or what's happening in the future, like Google Ads is still going to find a way to reach people. But in terms of social, it's all about not only advertising on the platforms, but your organic content you put on there that people see when you get them there from a paid outlet resonates with the student body.
It does. It really does. The user-generated content, I always say social proof is the best proof. And if you have somebody that's using your product and they talk about it, that's a great way to market your institution. And I've heard some people say they're hesitant. They say, hey, I don't want some student to go out there, and then what if they go rogue and they say stuff they're not supposed to say with their on social media about us or on our platform. And the response to that was that somebody said, well, you already have students, you have your students and you trust them with the on-campus tours, and you have no idea what they're actually saying during those on-campus tours to some of these people right there. At least there you're somewhat able to moderate that on a digital platform.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things Beacon does, not even on the paid side, but when we develop university websites and talk about content and site architecture and how people want to navigate, we actually poll students ourselves. Like Beacon will get students from that university that we're doing design work for and hear about how they like to consume content and what they like about the student part of the website or the total website, the homepage, what resonates, what doesn't, and use that as a part of our redesign. So I think a lot of universities can do the same thing when it comes to their program pages, their advertising, and so on.
That's right. Give the people what they want. Jordan, I know you gave my audience what they wanted today, and I thank you for that. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you?
Feel free to reach out. BeaconTechnologies.com is the company I work for. You can reach out to us on there if you're interested in paid advertising or one of the other things that we do for higher education, with content development, website design, website development, SEO, analytics. We do it all. You can reach out there, or if you'd rather just connect with me as a friend and see kind of the stuff I post on LinkedIn, just like you do, Chris, just search Jordan Burleson on LinkedIn and I should show up pretty high with some SEO that I've done for myself there. So
very good. Very good. Yep. I'll be sure to tag you in the recap. So Jordan, thank you so much for this insightful episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I know the audience will too. I hope you have a great week and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into the show today. If you enjoyed it, don't keep it to yourself. Share with your friends in your network. And if you have a moment, I would really appreciate a review of the podcast. That'll help other people find the show as well. Tune in every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. when I release another episode. Take care now. Have a good one, friends.